Hi, this is Tanya Sheridan from inallsassiness.com, and today I wanted to show you close to my heart's brand new butterfly thin cut. This will go live on July 1st, and it is an absolute must-have if you're a card maker or even a scrapbooker. So I wanted to show you 4 cards that I designed and teach you how to create the shaker card, and then I want to tell you some other tips that you could use to interchange using this die. So when I first saw the die, I instantly thought, how gorgeous would this look if it was white on white? I think it's very elegant and great for weddings or, you know, anything truly, but I really like the look of the white on white. So that's what I decided to do with my cards. Now, before I get started, I wanted to show you the die close up. Hopefully you can see this. You can see it's very intricate. There is a nice, beautiful stitched border that cuts beautifully. There are multiple butterflies. There's 5 that are going to be interactive and 3D. And then there's lots of pieces that would cut out that you could then again use for confetti and another type of a card, etc. And then there's also lots of details on this thin cut as well. So there are little dots, there's some stitching, just lots of really neat things and elements included on the die. It is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so it will fit perfectly on an A2 size card. Okay, so that's what the die looks like. Before we get started, I do want to go over some basic tools that you can use. I'm using the clear shimmer brush. I'm using the diamond stickles by Ranger, which are fabulous, and it's the clear ones. I'm going to use some mini glue dots, my close to my heart runner or adhesive. I think a piercing tool is truly a must-have. You've got your scissors. I'm going to use red line tape in one element because I think it holds the best. And then we're going to use the silver loose sequins, which look like that. Okay, so those are all of the main items that you're going to need tool-wise. And then I will show you a couple other things as we go. So this is the main card that I wanted to teach you today. It is a shaker card. Of course, it opens up just like your regular card, and it has several different elements. And you'll notice that the butterflies, like I said, that they're interactive, so they do pop up. You could tape these down if you wanted to into position, so like put 3D foam tape right here, or you could have it just like that. I like it where it can come up and down because that way you could, you know, tuck them in to put them in the mail, and then the recipient can just pop the butterflies back out, etc. But butterflies are always a popular trend, and I think that this die is going to be one of your favorites very quickly once you create with it. So this is the one that I'm going to teach you how to do, but I'm going to show you how to do the elements on the other cards as well. So let's get started. This is what your card piece will look like when it comes out of the machine. Now, it's going to depend on your pressure and all that fun stuff, but basically I just took my piercing tool and I'm going to go through and pop all of these little guys out. Now, again, if you want to keep the pieces, you could do a shaker card. You could do them on the inside of your card. There's lots and lots of possibilities. And you can see for the most part, they're popping out very clean. The little branch is a little bit harder, and I might catch that one with my scissors. And there's lots of dots. So for the dots, you pretty much just need to run that piercing tool down into the hole, and those are going to pop out. Now, if you were to choose not to, you don't have to pop them all out. You could leave some of those intact. If you have a newer Cricut, or not Cricut mat, if you have a newer mat, you might have more pop out. I definitely recommend when you're cutting it, going ahead and running it through at least twice, just so that it makes sure it evenly gets out all these little spots. I did notice that the places to check to make sure they've popped out if you're cutting them yourself is this little flower here. You'll see it's here, here, and there. And for whatever reason on the edges, you just need to make sure you have really good pressure. Those are the 3 that I have snagged. Most of the time I can just pop them with my scissors and it's still all good. Now, as you're popping these, you'll also notice that the butterfly itself has some little holes on the wings. So you want to check those as well and make sure you get those. I personally did not keep all of the confetti. I didn't keep any of the dots. Those were so tiny, but I did keep the butterflies, the flowers, and the leaves, and then used them in a shaker card as well. So this die, we have several in a series. They are all about $16.95 or so, and they are all of this size so that they fit perfect on the cards. You don't even need to have a border, which is awesome. Pierce a few more of these, and then I'll show you how the butterflies work. We have a sunburst. We have just several wonderful designs. So if you're a card maker or even a scrapbooker, they are great. They are very sturdy. Our thin cuts are of the highest quality materials, which is an added perk. I think I have almost all of them. Okay. So I have one. Here's one that you can see my pressure wasn't super great. So what I'm going to do is just take my scissors, and usually it's just like one element that snags. And again, it's a really intricate die. So I can usually fix it with my scissors if you were to have that problem. So let's just snap through that. Might be easier to snap on the back. It's just a little bit tedious. There we go. And it pulls. And then when it pulls, you can just snap the rest with your scissors. We have cut these with the Sizzix machine, which worked fine. We found that the best and the cleanest results was the Close to My Heart cutting machine. If you don't have those, then feel free to reach out to me, and I'd love to chat with you about them. But you can adjust the pressure on those, and so it works fabulous. Okay, so this is what my piece is gonna look like. I'm gonna move off all of my little scraps and throw those away. Okay, so this is where we're starting from for the shaker card. So then the next thing that you're gonna need is you're gonna need a base, a card base. And I'm gonna fold this. Here is the rough edge, or the raised up edge. That goes to the inside. So we're gonna fold that just like this. And then you're gonna take out your shaker windows. Now these come with 2 full sets of the rectangles. You don't have to use these. These are just super easy. And I love that Close to My Heart provides those with us. So I need this piece, which is a piece of acetate. You could, of course, get acetate from, Amazon or someplace like that and cut it and do all the work for you, or work yourself. But it's easier that Close to My Heart has them ready. So if you notice, I am just using my nail to slightly catch the film. There's always a piece of film on these. And I'm just gonna pull it back and set that aside for when I'm ready. And then this is the inside. So I'll tell you what I do. You can do it however you desire, but I use my scissors because I want to keep the rest of it intact. It's all foam tape. It matches the 3 different sizes. So there's 1 size, 2 size, 3 sizes. But I tend to leave it on the carrier sheet and just cut away the size that I need. And then I save the others for another project. So I am gonna come across the scissors guide pretty easily. These are non-stick scissors from Close to My Heart, which are great for cutting foam tape. But once you're in that seam, it cuts pretty easy. But then I'm gonna show you the next step, which is a little bit trickier. Okay, so this is what it's gonna look like after I cut it. Oops, I missed that little corner. Let me cut that again. It's a little bit time consuming, but worth it in the end. So all of this foam tape I can use for another project. Now there's squares. I don't know if you can see those on the Zoom. It's kind of hard, but the squares are just regular foam tape. So those are just surplus. You don't need them for anything, but it gives you extra so that you have the next 2 rectangles as well. So now that I have this, if you were to look really closely, and you're probably not going to be able to see it on the camera, but if you were to look really, really closely, you can see the foam tape underneath. And so we need to fix that. This is, if you're looking at the back, a very narrow margin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully snip about halfway in. I'm going to scoot this over. And I'm going to carefully snip halfway over here. Again, you could hand cut all of this, but the rims for me are so much easier. I'm going to turn my scissors. If you were to slit it all the way through, it's not the end of the world. You're going to just tape it back together. I'm going to carefully turn my scissors and then cut the other way like this. Again, non-stick scissors are absolutely perfect for this. If you don't have any, you might want to invest in some. Okay, so I am going to cut as carefully as possible. Sometimes it's easier to go ahead and cut off that excess so you're not fighting with it. And we're going to cut this all the way around. So hopefully if you're doing this at home, you can follow me. If not, you can just speed up this video. You can see I'm not cutting very much at a time. I'm just inching my way through. So now you can see that this one is about half the width of the others. So we're gonna do the same thing over here. And again, don't panic, don't freak out. If you cut all the way through, I've cut all the way through on a few of mine. It's not the end of the world. You can just piece it back together when you adhere it, okay? But what the purpose of this is to get it narrow enough so that it's not showing through and it's not sticking in the wrong places. Okay, so that's 2 down. Now you could save that foam if you wanted to. It's kind of mutilated, so I'm just throwing mine away. You can see that one I cut way too close. But again, we're gonna fix it. So if you were using the Close to My Heart tape and you didn't want to do the rim, then use the narrow. You can choose your height, but use the narrow and then cut that in half. You do want to try your best to keep the backing on as long as possible. I know sometimes the scissors want to just take it off, and you really don't want to do that. You can see I'm almost there, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that piece, get it out of my way. And you can see one of my corners did break, which is good to show you that I'm not perfect either. This last corner I find is always the trickiest. Okay, so this is what we have. We're gonna take our card base and set that down. And what I have been doing is I don't pull all of the film if I can help it. I just wanna pull part of it. And actually it's gonna be easier just to dissect that piece since I might tore. Okay, so I'm gonna line this up right along the edge. You want to make sure that you stay on the card. And I'm going to show you a trick at the end of what to do with the edges with our anti-static pouch. That'll help a little bit later too. So I'm just going all the way around, putting my rectangle back together. And you can see I'm kind of pulling that tape as I go, just so this stuff is really sticky. We don't want it to stick where we don't want it to stick. Okay, now if you are using your own tape and you're not using this rectangle, make sure that every corner and every space is filled. Now you can see I have a tiny gap here. That's gonna be okay. But if it's bigger and you're piecing it together, you don't wanna go like 1 inch and then a break, etc. Because what's gonna happen is all of your delightful sequins are gonna fall out, okay? So I put my sequins in our craft jar. I love our craft jars. They fit about 1.5 packs of our sequins, which I think is awesome. And then what I'm going to do for this one, I don't really need to pick and choose. For some of the other cards, I wanted very specific colors. And so having the little lid makes it easier, but I'm not really worried about it for this particular card. So I am going to go ahead and do about 10 sequins just randomly within this space. I am using the glue dot runner simply because I have cats, and when I have the box of glue dots out, they jump up on my table, and it seems like the glue dots always run away with their tails. So I like the runners. It also, for me, I can control it better, and I find that I don't waste nearly as many. They don't stick to things laying around. I don't accidentally hit them, which is what I used to do with the box all the time. And so this just allows me a little bit more control. Now, I probably wouldn't do the tiny, tiny ones as far as gluing them down, because then you don't always cover all of the sequins and you don't want those to be out there. Okay, so that's about how many I want to glue down. I'm going to take the rest and just kind of sprinkle them. I want to use a lot of sequins. You may choose whether you want a lot or not. That's totally up to you. But I want to use a lot in this project. And one thing that I love is I pick through my sequins a lot. I cherry pick through them and pick out the shades and the colors that I like. And so when you're doing a shaker card, if you've got an unbalanced set, it's great because that gives you a chance to open a new pack and use the rest of your unbalanced. These sequins are gorgeous because they have several shades of silver. They have a white and they have like a holographic. Now, I want to make sure that they are kind of flat. And so you saw me using my finger and trying to press those down. That anti-static pouch would also be a great thing that you could do before and just wipe down your bottom paper. Okay, so that's about where we are. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna very carefully pull. I'm gonna hold my finger down because I want to hold my card down, and I'm gonna very carefully pull up this rim. If you just whip it across, then what can happen is your sequins can pop and then catch on to this foam tape, and then it's really tricky to try to get those off. So I'm always trying to hold it down and be careful when I pull it. You can see up at the top, I have a white one that wants to stick, so I just want to pull that away. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I usually use my finger, pick up any random sequins that have popped, and just kind of put them in the center. And I'm going to add my acetate. Now, unfortunately, once this goes down, it goes down. It's not gonna move. So you want to make sure you've got it perfectly. I usually try to zoom in on the light. It's a little bit trickier doing the camera. You'll notice that they are staticky, right? I didn't use that pouch like I should have. And so they're popping as I'm laying this down. Okay, so once you're sure that you've got everything under control and stuck in, then you want to come down and put pressure and just go across each seam with your finger to make sure that it's all there, okay? If you have a loner that's stuck, just go ahead and cut that off or what have you. Okay, so next what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and put our butterfly piece on top. So before I do that, I want to pinch all of my little butterflies, make sure that they all cut cleanly. If not, use your scissors. Now, this cuts very easily, like I said. My son cut a lot of these for me and didn't have a hard time. So it's a very easy cut. It looks very exquisite and it looks very hard. It looks like you spent a ton on this card, a ton of time, and it's actually very, very easy. The most time-consuming part is just popping out the little pieces. Okay, so those are my 5 butterflies, and I just want to make sure that they're all up before I glue this down. And you can use whatever kind of adhesive that you want. I chose to use some of my red line tape, which is not a Close to My Heart product, but I love it. And I'm gonna put this on in a few spots, but not over the whole thing, because I don't want it to pop up. So I'm putting it in spots that you notice that there's no holes. This die goes so close to the edge that it is very tricky to put down. And so I found that this works really well. And I just basically put it on 3 spaces, down here, up there, and then I'm gonna do another piece over here. And then I'm gonna use my regular adhesive runner. You can choose to use whatever you'd like. If you wanna use liquid glass or Tombow glue, that works really well. For video and time purposes though, I'm gonna use my regular adhesive runner. So I'm just gonna pull the film off of this red line tape. And again, that's just gonna give me some extra stickiness to stay exactly where I want, because this is a beautiful card and people are gonna wanna play with it. It's meant to be interactive. And so you wanna, whoops, I pulled that whole piece off. You wanna make sure that when they're playing with it, your whole piece doesn't come off. And it is, of course, harder to glue something down to acetate versus a regular paper to paper. Okay, so then what I'm gonna do is I have my all-purpose mat down over here, and I usually use that for my adhesive. Hopefully that's still under camera. And I'm just gonna go around with my runner, and then I'm gonna catch a few spots, like underneath the belly or the body of the butterfly, a few spots that it's not gonna show on the other side. And I'm gonna pull this down and attach this very easily to the edge, just like that. Okay, so it looks like my partner here could not find the static pouch, but what you would do is you would take the static pouch and just run that baby powder right around the edges of your foam tape, and that way when it's handled, it's no longer sticky. Okay, so that's what you would do with that. And we're gonna press this down. So that is your finished card without details. You'll notice here, it looks very similar. So now I'm gonna go over a couple of options that you can do to beautify these. So one of the things that I did in all of my cards when I was playing was I used the clear shimmer brush, and I usually kind of dab it off on the side, like on a paper towel to get it started. And I simply traced all of the stitching pattern, not the border, but all of the stitching pattern of the fluttering of the actual butterflies themselves. I thought that that looked really elegant. When the card hits the light, you can really see those stitches. So I thought that that was a fun addition. And you can go back over that if it's not super dark, okay? So that is all that I actually did on this original card. But then I wanted to try some variations. So a couple of the variations that you can see is on this card, and hopefully you can catch it under the zoom. I left everything blank on the overlay, and then I just did the butterflies' wings and the butterflies themselves. And so I'm going to use this one that's not punched out, but just so that you can get the feel. What I did was I popped the butterfly first with my fingers, okay, and then laid it down. And then I gently went over the entire thing with the shimmer brush. And then of course I did my flutters as well. Now with the clear shimmer brush, if you apply it too thick, then it will look silver. So you want to be very delicate and make sure that you don't get a ton at one time. You can give it 2 layers, but if you get it too thick, it's gonna appear more silver. Now, if that's the way that you would like, then totally go for it, okay? So that is 2 of those. If you wanted to do this technique, you could do it on all of the butterflies. And then the second thing I did on this card, well, first of all, let's go ahead and glue it down so that you can see, if you're not doing a shaker, how that's gonna look. So you wanna always make sure when you're gluing them down that you pop your butterflies first, because it's hard to get underneath it if you didn't pop them, okay, once it's glued down. So I have my piece like this. I'm again gonna flip it. I wanna make sure that I get all of the edges, and I'm using my all-purpose mat for my adhesive because it wipes right off. So any lone adhesive just comes right off, okay? Now, for me, this is just a sample, but for you, you would want to pop out all of your pieces first, right? But it just goes white on white, and it has a shadow effect, which I love. So then what I did with this, and again, you could intermix any of these techniques, is I used my stickles and I did a little dot on each and every one of the circles. And it's gonna dry, and when it dries, it sinks into that circle a little bit. But you can see in the upper corner here how that will look, okay? So you can see it's kind of like a little dome there, and here's the dried one. See how it's kind of settles into the hole? So that's a fun technique that you could do with that one. Another idea that I found that I really, really liked, and I'd been wanting to try it for a while, so I was very happy that I did, is that I took my card base, and of course you're gonna fill it. Now for this, it might be easier to go ahead and cut a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 piece of white daisy. Do the shimmer brush on that piece and then attach that to the card front. It might give it a little bit more stability. I didn't have a problem, but you know, the shimmer brush does give it some wetness. So I just took the shimmer brush, and you want to make sure it's really wet. So I just kept testing it off on the side, and I'm going to paint this entire piece. Now theoretically, it would have been wiser to do that over my all-purpose mat, but we'll clean the Versa mat afterwards. And you want to make sure you get really good coverage. So you can see how my card is kind of almost like warping a little bit. That's why I said it might be better to do it on a second piece and move down. Now, in an ideal world where we're not testing, then I would allow this to totally dry, okay? But we're not in that world at the moment. And so I'm just gonna pop a few of these out of this next one so that you can see. And then we would attach that straight. And when we attach that straight, hopefully you can see under the zoom, the shimmer on the base is gonna come through, leaving the white on the top, okay? So that's something fun that you can do. And I don't know if you can see this but it's like really, really shimmery. It's absolutely beautiful. So then the other thing that you could do is you could cherry pick, this is the one that I cherry picked, all of your loose sequins. So I use the iridescent on that one. I think that they are gorgeous. They are my favorite from this collection, but we could do the same with the silver. So if I were to put my sequins on, I just created a flourish around where the butterflies are, okay? So once I did that, whoops, I've got a clear one stuck. Once I did that, then what I did is I came back with my diamond stickles and just did a tiny dot in the center of each sequence, and then allowed that to dry. So your end result is going to be your flourish that comes all the way around the around the butterflies, and leaving that iridescent flow, okay? So just to recap, some different things you can do. You could do the sequins that look like this in a cascading effect around the butterflies. That is certainly one you could do. On this one, I did just the butterflies. So you can see that there's just the shimmer on the butterflies, but when you lift it up and on that negative space, that's solid white. I also did the stickles in each of the dots. So that is something that you could do to pull color in. On this one, I did just the background. So you can see under the butterfly wings and in this negative space, the shimmer pops. Hopefully you can catch that on the camera. And the other is a matte finish. So that's a beautiful way to do that as well. And then on the shaker card, you can shake it and you can see all the sequins moving around. And then you have all the flourishes. Now, I'm not sure if I said before, but one of the advantages of gluing down some of those sequins was that all of your shakers, if your card, sits, they don't all sit at the bottom. There's still some that have been glued into place, and they also kind of create channels so that they don't all drop to the bottom and they still do move around. So I hope that you found this informative. I would love to see how you have created with these butterfly dies. I think it is one that you will absolutely love. If you have any questions, you can certainly email me at inallsassiness@gmail.com. That's INALLSASSINESS@gmail.com. Have a great day and make it sassy.